You're listening to the Angry Designer Podcast, where we help frustrated graphic designers crush the industry bull and share what it takes to charge what you're worth and build badass, rewarding careers.
Sean.
Massimo.
So this feels a little weird because we don't have bourbon with us.
Yeah. Oh,
I did have some bourbon last night, though, which felt really
it's like,
good.
do you remember that one stupid dry January we did?
Oh my God, what? That lasted, what, 2 weeks?
We drank,
Sorry.
we drank tea while we were doing that. That's what, that was, we don't normally do this.
Under the circumstance, though, because we're not in our normal place,
this is
kind
true.
of cool. This is kind of cool.
Yeah.
We are here live.
Yes.
At Creative South.
Yeah.
Good old Big Mike has invited us back for a second year, which feels so right.
Yes.
The vibe here, and I'm not saying this is the only show, of course, out there, but just for anybody who hasn't experienced this, like this place is just the people, the family, the community, right?
Yeah.
It's just, and we're here in this creative hall. So we're like hanging out with artists. I mean, we even have Alan Peters right behind Sean. I don't know if anybody can see it. Like can you see that? Like, look at that guy. And I mean, hanging out with him.
That's our neighbor.
I know. It's just cool.
Yeah. It's very cool. Yes. It is a trip and it's good to be back. The vibe is still the same.
It is still the same.
Still
the
got
vibe
a nice,
is awesome,
right? A nice community kind of vibe.
And and again, prior to this, I mean, I've done some conferences, right? Okay. So I like trade shows in general.
Yep.
Overall, right? And it's just, for me personally as a designer, I find inspiration everywhere,
Mhm.
right? And I think everybody's heard me, go on about this. I will go to the cottage and find inspiration. I will go to conferences and find, but like trade shows, conferences like this, it's just, this
Times
is
10.
right.
Yeah.
Right. It's so overwhelming. And then to top it off, they have fantastic speakers.
Yep.
So, and then for a lot of people, there's workshops,
Mhm.
right? So this is part of that whole experience of
Mhm.
going to a conference and why people go, right? To get re-energized.
Yeah.
Right. We talk about this even if, to prevent burnout, or if you're feeling sluggish, you attend these places because there's so much to get with these,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And the conversations that you have, you could tell the designers that we talk to, they're completely jacked about this too, right?
Absolutely.
The couple that we talked to earlier this morning about we're talking about PowerPoint and how awesome PowerPoint was. And I was just like,
and I learned about motion design, right? And I found out about her inspiration, her story.
Yes.
There's so many parts of this that, I mean, I know I get experience from, and, inspiration.
Inspiration.
From,
yeah. It totally
right?
inspires you.
And everybody does. I mean, it's just from the artwork. So that's the benefit of coming to these things.
Yes.
Okay. But there's a downside, well, no. And hear me out here.
I know what you're saying.
What I'm saying is, when you're here, the energy's high, right? And that's good. It's a good natural high. And you're like, I am totally, going to take advantage of this. And yes, I learned this from a workshop. Yes, I learned that. But what happens is that high oftentimes is temporary.
Yes.
And that's what sucks. Okay. People are and I mean, it's nobody's fault, right? But what happens is, you're here, you're learning, you're meeting, you're like, I love that style. I want to use that style in my own work.
Yeah.
I love what I learned in this workshop. I want to, learn this. I want to apply this. You talk to people and you're like, that was the most amazing piece of advice I ever have. I want to implement it in my business,
I
right?
want to use that.
So, you're driving home, you're flying home, you're just flying.
Yeah.
Then you get home.
Yep.
And the sad reality is, life kicks back in. Okay. All of a sudden, you're going from this creative energy, high creative, environment, and then you basically crash.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's nobody's fault, but I mean, you do crash after conferences. What happens is you have so much fun, you neglect your inboxes, and after 2 or 3 or 4 days, you got a mile of inboxes. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, oftentimes when you take time off, it's only going to come back to twice as much work in half the amount of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's normal, right? And then what happens, and this is the sad part about it, is you're at these shows, you're learning all this stuff, you come home, you're inundated with everything else that spills out to your second week, to your third week, and you're like, okay, I'll get to it later. I'll get to it later. And you keep pushing this stuff into the future.
Yes.
And ultimately, you draw, your high's gone.
Yeah.
Right. You come down, and oftentimes you can't get back into it.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, that does kind of suck because you see, there's a lot of creativity here.
Yeah.
And then when you get home, you want to implement that. And, a lot of times what you're working on doesn't necessarily, jibe with what you're doing. So you do personal project or something like that. Like you said, your inbox is starting to fill up.
Starts getting me all
I got to do the real stuff now.
And whether it's a trade show or a conference like this or just a summer vacation, right? You need to, capture all this shit, right?
Yeah.
And so, I what I did is, while we're all like going through this, and I started going through my process, okay, of what I do after these shows, okay? And I try to stick to it, right? And so I'm just going to give everybody like five what to do after the shows.
Oh,
okay.
Nice.
Like something super, and again, we're not talking anything crazy here. And I'm sure there's other better ways to capture the experience. Okay.
Mhm.
But generally what I try to do, right, is number one, right, immediately after the show, sometimes on the plane ride back, sometimes on, like the first night back before I start getting back into work. Okay. What I do is I start writing down, and I actually write down all the things I learned that I want to implement. Not the details,
Oh, okay.
but just so I remember, right? Oh, I did a workshop, LinkedIn design, and, they said, do this about illustration. So I write that down, right? Hey, I talked to, this person about motion design. I want to check this out, right? I learned, and this about business practices, and I just write down the notes at a high level that at least if I read them, I can recall what that experience was. Okay, what that thing to implement. Okay,
right.
so that's the first thing I do.
Yeah.
Okay, and again, this is key because you'd be surprised at how fast you can forget things.
I was just going to say, because it's hot, it's top of mind, right? So you want to make sure you write it down.
You want to strike while it's hot.
Exactly. Yeah, because 4 days in, you're back to your normal life. You're going to forget all that stuff. Like,
Absolutely.
There was something I was supposed to do. I learned.
Right. Absolutely. Right. So, and then the next step I take, which is still all encompassing of this though, is I try to lock in one idea. Okay. And I start that even amidst all my emails. Okay. And that's the one thing I try to do, because I got my list, right? And I try to just hone in and lock one thing in between the first 1 to 3 days.
Yeah. Oh, the shameless plug from our neighbor.
If you guys are listening online.
Yes.
Alan Peters just showed his book over top of Sean's shoulder.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes. Buy that book. It's really good.
Yeah, it's a really good book. Actually, it's a really good book.
Yeah.
So in that first 1 or 3 days, right, I try to lock in one idea, right? I don't try to do my whole list because then it won't happen. I'll get burnt out. I'll get frustrated. I just focus in on that one idea. And that's key, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing I do is get my ideas and lock in on one of those ideas. But I have my list.
Yeah.
I'm reviewing my list so I don't forget my list. Okay.
Good.
Then the second thing I do, right, and it's a big part of this event especially, right, is I try to reconnect that first week with at least 3 people that I met. Okay. Whether they're vendors here that we could use, whether it's just other social medias, creators, whether it's just people, saying thanks on social. I try to start that conversation because the community part here is in my opinion, is the most important aspect of Creative South. But, I can't say that it's going to be the same for all conferences, right? Especially if I do a car show or something that where I get inspiration. But those connections are key.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, you want to keep that conversation going.
Yes.
Right. We had some fantastic conversations last night.
Yeah.
Right. And it would be great to continue those conversations.
Yes.
So it's like, don't be scared to reach back out and be like, hey, I really enjoyed that conversation. We should keep it going. Let's get, what about this? What about that? And what happens is you start holding each other accountable for even a conversation that happened about trying something new in business. Trying something new for yourself. Right. But again, these are the conversations. This is, in my opinion, is probably the most valuable part about events like this, right? Is keeping that going, because you're here and you're seeing stuff, right? And you're picking up shirts and you're picking up new techniques, right? But relationships, they are an equal asset, okay, to your business.
Yes.
Okay. And I know people don't want to think that way, but it's true.
Yeah.
You start growing your network through events like this. And there's no shame in that. Okay. I don't think anybody would be like, oh, I met him at an event and now they're asking for my help. Yeah. That's the whole point of this community, which is why it's beautiful, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That's
right.
absolutely perfect.
The ROI from these events aren't just what you learned.
Yeah.
but it is also who you met. And not even just from a business perspective.
Yeah.
Right? We made friends last year, and seeing them here this year, it's fantastic.
Great.
Keeping in touch with them over the years, it's fantastic. We met one of our angry designers who ended up just showed me all of his like crazy ass artwork.
Yeah.
I need some of that on my walls. So you know who I'm connecting with afterwards. So so definitely, you want to, the second thing you want to do is you want to reconnect that first week back with at least 3 people. Give yourself that time. Okay.
Right.
So these are really small, manageable things to do on your first week back when you've got a mile of work shit to do. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, another thing I do, and this is very important, and this kind of goes back, if anybody, has heard our recent episode on Harahashibu, okay, you got this 80-20% rule, right? I try within the first 5 days, okay, to work my ass off to get caught up those first 4 days. And on that 5th day, okay, on that last 20%, I give myself a creator day, a me day.
Yes.
Okay. So again, this is important for everybody to do in general, and we recommend this, right?
Yeah.
Make sure you give yourself 20% of your time for you, personal development. Well, that also applies to implementing this shit.
Right.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So you book that day. Okay. And literally you book it, you decide that, if you're going to check emails, make sure it's at the end of the day, make sure you do it the night before. So you're free and clear that day, right?
Yeah.
Book yourself that day. And then that's your chance to go deep into that one thing that you really want to tackle.
Wanted to do. Yeah.
And again, review your whole list.
Yeah.
But that one while you're energized. Well, this way you're looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's nothing better than pent up creativity.
Exactly.
And you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna just nail that on Friday, and I'm gonna work my ass off.
And not necessarily creativity. I mean, and that's very important. But
you're right.
There's a technical aspect that you can, you pick up in a workshop. And I think it's good to take some time to actually teach yourself. Something that you've seen from a content creator saying, I really need to learn how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So this is part of your 80-20?
80-20 rule, right? Use that time. Use that to jump on the items in your list, right? Because again, now you've documented what you've learned. Okay. You've decided to tackle one of those things initially, but you keep reviewing everything else.
Right.
You do reach out to some of the people that may have affected this inspiration, or just to keep the conversation going.
Yeah.
And then immediately when you're back, schedule that time for yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
You have to do that. Okay.
It's beautiful.
And there's nothing wrong with this.
No,
this is a huge benefit for people. Because and then if you really want to, and I suck at this because I am not the world's best social person when it comes to social media. But, once you've done that, once you've created it, once you've owned that new task that you want to hit up, post it.
Yeah.
Put it out there, put it on your personal feed, right? Look what I learned, from Creative South. Look what I learned from Conference B, right? Like you actually, and even if it's just like Fan Expo, dude.
Yeah.
Okay. I love Fan Expo.
Yes.
And, I wish I could be as cool as those guys and post that stuff, when we get back from Fan Expo.
Yeah.
But again, it is an equally inspiring place that I will go through this whole process for, right? I will practice my drawing, but for my kids. Okay. Right. And while I might not post that stuff because it's not there yet, the reality is, by posting something, you're holding yourself accountable.
Yes.
Okay. So this is where you want to share with the world what you've learned, right? And then this way you're putting it out there and you're making it visible.
Yeah.
So
nice.
So these are things that I always try to do when I get back from these events, right? I go through the merch I bought, I go through the stickers, I remember the relationships, but it's a process that at least keeps me engaged after the event.
Yeah.
Because I think what happens is people come to these events and literally they waste the ticket.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's that. I mean, you spent the time, you spent the money to get here. Right.
Yeah.
You took pictures, you made connections. You don't want that shit to die in your Instagram reel.
Yeah.
Right. And that would suck.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You want to make the best of this great situation kind of thing.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think people always think that, the best creators are the most talented ones. Okay. But that's not necessarily the case, right? We've learned from experience that the best creators are, the designers that act faster. Okay. Get their shit out faster instead of overthinking everything. Okay.
Right.
How many times have you seen somebody and you're like, I'm better than them. Why are they so popular? The reality is they're getting their shit out there
Yeah.
and they're actually doing
They're
the
doing
work.
it. Yeah,
They're doing
exactly.
it.
Yeah.
Where you're just kind of sitting back and kind of
Yep.
doing it yourself and not
Yep.
sharing
Yep.
and letting life get in
Get
the
in
way, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, you can bet those people are doing the 80-20 rule.
Well,
Right?
yeah,
they're
absolutely. If
taking
not
that time,
more personal
probably.
time,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because
exactly.
there's a huge part to this. It's really important for people to embrace.
Yes.
For sure.
Absolutely.
And again, it is personal projects, personal growth, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's what happens. Creativity happens. Okay. Creative growth happens after an event like this, not during.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people think. Like you come here and you're like, oh, I'm so fucking inspired. Creative South was amazing. And while the experience is amazing and the workshops and this and that, it's not growth. It's an experience.
Right.
You know, the growth happens after you leave.
Turn that into.
Okay,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people forget, that the most important part of these events isn't necessarily what's happening at the event, but it's what you take away and apply after the event.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Nice.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just like a big, you know, I don't ever want to say that something like this is a waste.
No.
Okay, because
no.
there's other reasons, you know, personal fulfillment. Oh, here's a little buddy. Personal fulfillment is a big part of this. You know, like just the community aspect, right? Is great. But you know, when it comes to applying the inspiration, okay, you have to act on that right away. Otherwise, you know, it's kind of a lost opportunity.
It's a great opportunity that you've just kind of squandered.
Yeah.
Which is terrible. You don't want to do that. Yeah.
So for the next couple of days, we've got a lot of interviews coming.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
We've got, you know, Alan Peters, James Bernard.
Yeah.
You know, I think Big Mike wants to come back on and have a chat. You know, we've got a couple other angry designers that we've met. So I hope you guys tune in, you know, for Angry Designer Live episodes year 2.
Yes.
Because I think we'll be adding another conference here after as well.
Yeah.
So a lot more interviews coming up. But, you know, we've got some fantastic people coming and some great conversations. Chilled, down to earth, nothing too scripted.
Yep.
And we're just going to be having fun with this.
Yes. So we got one that is particular. I'm really looking forward to. I'm not going to say.
Okay.
Because we've discussed this already.
Yes.
But
yes.
it's going to be really,
There's going to be a lot of good ones.
Really good. Yeah. So
rock on.
It's awesome.
All right, everybody. Well, this was going to be a nice short one.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you attend these events, if you attend any event that you get inspiration from, whether it's your vacation, a conference, a trade show, you know, an anime north, you know, whatever,
car show,
like whatever gets you turned on. Okay. When inspiration strikes, okay, take advantage of that moment.
Yeah.
Write down those items that you've learned just quickly that you want to long-term implement. Act on one of them. Okay. Follow up with some of the conversations or the people that you've made in that network, and then give yourself that day immediately after that week back. Okay. Give yourself that 20%. Okay. That 20% is yours. Okay.
Yes.
And own that shit.
Yeah.
Because again, you have to remember growth happens after these events. Okay.
Yes.
After inspiration.
Absolutely. Nice.
All right.
Woo. I'm inspired, baby.
Yeah. That's good. What are you gonna do about it, Sean?
Yeah, I'm not gonna foolishly squander it.
I feel like a dad there. Like such a bad uncle, Joe.
It's a teachable moment, and that's nothing wrong with going all dad on that.
All right, everybody. My name is Massimo.
And my name is Sean.
Stay creative.
And stay angry.